Hey guys, what's going on? Memes here. So, apparently we had yet another debate, this time in the great state of South Carolina. And as we can see from the title, stay tuned for more cash. Basically, here's what happened. This article was brought to us by Politico here. Uh, Tuesday's Democratic primary debate in South Carolina had something of an awkward ending. A cliffhanger that kept candidates at their podiums, uncertain about whether or not it was over. CBS moderator Gayle King said that she was posing one final two-part question. First, I'd like you each to tell us the biggest misconception about you. That's number one, she said. Number two, the South Carolina motto is, while I breathe, I hope, so outside politics in no more than 45 seconds or so. What's your personal motto? Your personal belief, your favorite quote word that represents you, yada yada yada. So basically they answered and everything, and apparently CBS announced debate details last week, saying it would run from 8 p.m. to 10:15 p.m. But as the final question round concluded and the clock struck 10 p.m., Nora O'Donnell said, "Well, thank you. That concludes our debate." No, King said, jumping in. "We have time for one more break, Nora. One more break. Time flies when you're having fun. You're watching the Democratic debate right here on CBS." When the station returned to the debate from commercial, the candidates were still in place. King then officially marked the end with a clearer closing. "Thank you," King said. "That concludes our debate." Oh, jeez. Hey, I guess you gotta get that ad revenue and everything, because you would schedule it for that. It's incredibly awkward. Full disclosure, I didn't actively watch the debate. I was mostly kind of listening to commentary from my friend Lapis, who you can check out her channel here, as well as Rat Resistance. You can check out his channel here. I was basically listening to most of their commentary and stuff. I could kind of hear it through the speakers, because I think they got a copyright claim or strike or something like that. So yeah, it's very interesting, and again, it just seems to be a whole big kerfuffle there. So just a real quick couple of things, because I got to do another video after this. All right. This is brought to us by the New York Times. 6 takeaways from Democratic debate in South Carolina. With 17 contests at stake over the next week, the night took on a frenetic pace. Sanders faced the most scrutiny yet, Warren continued to bite into her rivals, and Buttigieg and Klobuchar faded. So basically, the gist of this article, they're just kind of going over a number of the points. So we'll just go through this really quickly. It was a messy and unmoderated melee. Former Mayor Michael R. Bloomberg questioned not only Mr. Sanders' electability, but his impact down ballot. Former Mayor Pete Buttigieg made the same argument. Former Vice President Joseph R. Biden Jr. hit Mr. Sanders on guns. So basically, from what I heard from a number of folks, there were times where folks were just kind of talking over each other. There was no real moderation. Apparently, Joe Biden at one point, what did he say? Basically, he was kind of like, people were raising their hands, and he kind of stopped talking. And I believe at one point, one of the moderators called him a gentleman. So they kind of let the candidates go at it. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan of when you get like 3, 4, 5 people kind of trying to talk over each other, try to get in those zingers and make your points, because I mean, hey, you're vying for the most powerful office more or less in the world. So it is one of those things where I would actually like to hear people talk, just because I still remember back in the day on Bill O'Reilly's The O'Reilly Factor, folks would just start screaming over each other, and I just changed the channel. I actually am curious about what people have to say. Some folks love that. Hey, to each their own. But, yep, time and time again, Mr. Sanders was challenged on the political impact of his expansive agenda and how he would pay for it. Can you do the math for the rest of us? Unfortunately, Andrew Yang is no longer in the race, seeing as he was selling hats with math. And, yeah, I don't know. I think it would have been nice to kind of have him in here. But, I mean, hey, he kind of bowed out gracefully and stuff. He realized, okay, I'm probably not really going to be that viable this time around. And now everyone seems to want Mr. Yang. Oh, here we go. Why am I stopping? No one else stops Mr. Biden, wondered aloud. I mean, that's a fair thing. And again, I like Joe Biden. Do I necessarily agree with him on everything? No. But then again, I don't agree with anybody on everything. We're all unique individuals. Yep, so basically Sanders took some hits, and here's the thing. Basically, he was highlighting a number of things, social programs, precisely about Cuba, basically about their education system, perhaps their healthcare system as well. And unfortunately, I guess the way he communicated it, he wasn't that great at separating the whole authoritarian regime from the actual policies. And again, as has been highlighted by a number of folks, that certain individual back in Italy in the day made the trains run on time. I get it, that is a point, but you got to be able to make sure it's divorced from the authoritarianism. Perhaps there are some better examples there, just because that's the mimetic that people are going to think. It's like, wait, you're saying nice things about a dictator, and it is very hard to separate that. So maybe highlight some better examples. Just my opinion here. So basically, Warren's new pitch, she's more effective than Sanders. And here's one of the things. It's like, Senator Warren, I mean, she's been debating for a long time. And basically, what was that? Let's go back up real quick. No, not that part. Basically, I think she's trying to appeal to be more viable, because at one point, I remember her saying that she was like a proud capitalist or something like that, whereas Sanders is a social democrat, or democratic social. Here's the thing, it's like, people hear that, and let's face it, especially if you don't know something, our minds tend to go to the worst possible place there. I also keep in mind that if Senator Sanders was ever elected, that he's going to actually have to work with Congress and stuff, and they're probably going to hold back some of the proposals that a lot of folks are concerned about. But you know what? As we saw from, I think, one of the New Hampshire, or what was it, I believe the Nevada polls, they thought he was the most likely candidate to fight for them. I think it was him, Senator Warren, as well as former VP Biden. That's one of the things. It's like, does everyone sit there and read over every single policy they have? No. I really haven't. Occasionally I'll inquire about things. Should I do some more research with the upcoming mass primary? Absolutely. But people are also busy. They have other things on their minds, so they just, a lot of times, just kind of go by how a candidate kind of makes them feel. If they feel like they're going to fight for them, they're going to support them. They might not agree with them on everything, and folks hate getting attacked by it. That's why folks are always like, oh, don't talk about politics and stuff. So let's continue on. Still, it was clear Ms. Warren remains most at ease when criticizing Mr. Bloomberg, which she did early, often, and intensely. I don't care how much money Mayor Bloomberg has. The core of the Democratic Party will never trust him. That's harsh. Facing a make-or-break primary, here's one of the things. Joe Biden, he needs to do extremely well here. If he does not get a victory in South Carolina, I'm not sure he's going to have the money to continue onward and necessarily be viewed as a truly viable candidate. Folks will go over about like his gaffes, this, that. Again, he has been doing this for years, but this is kind of bringing whole ageism into question here. It's like, I always hear people say, it's like, well, why do we tend to see mostly a lot of older folks kind of in these things? Yeah, these folks have been around, they've made connections, they are experienced. But at the same time, it is kind of refreshing to see somebody like Mayor Pete and even Representative Gabbards in the race as well. You get some folks that I believe they're both under 40 still. There may have been a birthday there or so. But that's one of the things. It's people are getting kind of sick and tired of just seeing seemingly the same faces. And again, is that a bad thing? I don't necessarily know, but people seem to be hungry for something else, something new. Apparently, Mr. Biden was invoking his time under President Obama as well, and Bloomberg bumps his way through. One of the quotes here is, I would have thought after I did such a good job in beating them last week, they would be a little bit more afraid, Bloomberg said haltingly. Is the thing. At least that sounds like kind of a prepared remark, in my opinion, that he's kind of just poking fun at the fact that he kind of face plopped. I believe I used the term raffle stomped the other day. But let's just finish up. What was it? And then we have Mayor Pete and Amy Klobuchar, Senator Klobuchar, pardon. Apparently they weren't actively in it as well. May have had some time there, but as we know, that the debate time and speaking time for candidates, it tends not to be equal. I mean, you can say for better. You could say that's for worse. I'm curious what these folks have to say, because they're vying for the highest office in the land. And I think that's it for that. And let's just pop over to the Washington Post. The trailer. It was another not great South Carolina debate. Here are the prizes. Oh, geez. Was this opinion? Yeah, it looks like political analysis. Is it? I don't see it saying opinion there. All right. Just as no good decisions are made after 2 a.m., no good debates are held before the South Carolina primary. It was here that the 2008 contest between Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama descended into a fight about slumlords, that Newt Gingrich blew up at a question about infidelity, and Donald Trump was booed so lustily that he accused the audience of being stuffed with lobbyists. There were plenty of boos inside the Gallard Center on Tuesday, so many that they birthed a conspiracy theory about Mike Bloomberg buying up tickets to build a cheering section. Every campaign had the same number of tickets and donors got the rest. There were long stretches when candidate crosstalk blended into a sort of Steve Reich cacophony. Well, that's the thing. Folks are talking over each other, everything. So the most improved front-runner, according to the Post here, was Joe Biden. Led in every poll in South Carolina, the decisive opinion here would be interpreted as a just-in-time comeback. Biden has lost 3 consecutive contests and slipped into Super Tuesday polling. For the rest of the time in 10 of these debates, he was not at the center of the stage. That helped Biden, as did questions that tended to accept his campaign's premise. Apart from one superficially negative question about why he was slipping with black voters, Biden was usually asked to remind voters about his record. All right. So they go into firearm safety laws. On gun safety laws, why should anyone have faith that you're the one who can get this done now? On racial wealth gaps, how do you convince black voters that you can change years of inequities? Biden was asked straightforwardly how he would handle the coronavirus outbreak, relations with North Korea, and ambitions of the Chinese construction industry. Biden was defter than usual in handling these questions, like Senator Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. He's been energized by the threat posed by Mike Bloomberg, but he was also fired up by Tom Steyer, the billionaire who single-handedly weakened his position in South Carolina. You talked about concern about race. Biden asked, well, my good friend on the end of this platform, he in fact bought a system that was a private prison system. After he knew that, in fact, what happened was they hogtied young men in prison here in this state. I don't necessarily know if that's true. Unfortunately, it wouldn't necessarily surprise me depending on the situation. Biden also made a surprising but memorable promise to appoint a black woman to the Supreme Court. It wasn't always pretty, but it was the kind of strategy, formulate an attack and stick to it, that Biden had struggled to pull off before, and it was just in time. So we're going to have to see what happens. The most improved, not quite frontrunner, Mike Bloomberg. The jokes were terrible and terribly delivered. Bloomberg's facetious thank you to the candidates he had beaten in Las Vegas was cringeworthy. A tiny slip when Bloomberg seemed to say he'd bought the 2018 Democratic landslide in the House. Where was that quote? He said, I bought, helped win, or something like that. Where is it? I don't get all of that. They're saying that, again, this is the Post, so I mean, you can take it as it would. They're kind of ragging on Elizabeth Warren, and again, I mean, she is a more progressive candidate. She doesn't seem to be promising at least quite as much, at least in my opinion, as Senator Sanders. But I mean, again, she is proposing, I believe, was it a 2% wealth tax for certain folks. Again, my only issue is, if you're going to do something like that, if you're going to have that every single year, my thing is, are you just doing it on wealth, or what if it's actually invested? And again, this is probably on me. I should probably look into it more as well. Least interested in putting up with this, Bernie Sanders, Senator for Vermont's hatred of corporate media is pure. He is more comfortable than any other candidate when challenging the premise of the media's questions. He has never been under so much pressure and responded to it by talking over opponents, to riding the way some issues were framed. At one point saying, really? When audience members booed a statement about Cuba's dictatorship improving literacy and life expectancy. Again, it's a mimetic that a lot of Americans have there. So again, I watched, what was it, Sicko? Was it Michael Moore's documentary and stuff? I'm like, oh, well, what's going on here? Why can't we have it like this? And again, our own healthcare system, it is so extremely complex. How do we even begin to unwind it? this is something that does concern a lot of Americans. So we're going to have to see what happens. Best candidate with a cold, apparently Mayor Pete was sick. He's canceled some events due to being ill again. Don't necessarily want to get other people sick. The Why They Are Here Award, Amy Klobuchar and Tom Steyer. Klobuchar's triumphant New Hampshire debate had one ingredient she did not control, a complacent Warren. For one night, she was not just a moderate warning the party could go off the rails with the wrong nominee, she was also a qualified female candidate for being shoved out of the conversation. Warren reasserted himself and cut off that particular line for Klobuchar. Her most memorable points were familiar ones, arguing that Sanders would throw the election and she would win. Here's the thing. Okay, so this is Amy Klobuchar. I think we can get all those bold progressive things done without having someone that's so alienating that we're going to turn off voters and that we need to bring with us. And again, hey, I mean, that's an assessment a lot of folks have. The least helpful, moderating all of it. And again, I understand kind of letting folks go at it. I tend to do that a lot myself. But if it's just nonstop screaming and people can't hear anything, let's face it, even I've observed that a lot of folks just kind of peace out. They don't mind a lively debate, but they actually want to know what the heck is going on here. So, and then on the trail, I was going to say, yep, as we can see, Tulsi Gabbard. She'll hold a town hall in Sterling, Virginia. Again, I am biased, and again, I personally plan on voting for Tulsi. I went to go see her. I went to go see Andrew Yang. And again, am I informed by my sources and everything I've had? Am I biased? Sure. Everybody's got a bit of bias in them. My big thing is just we got to acknowledge where we're coming from and everything. So it should be very interesting. So with that, folks, I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you all for watching. Peace out, everybody.